Hi, this is Everett, Everett's Watercolors. Welcome to my classroom. Today, I'm broadcasting from Chesapeake, Virginia, and welcome all the viewers from the USA and from everywhere around the world. Welcome aboard. I hope you're going to enjoy today's program. And I'm in the studio today with my wife, Gloria.
Hello.
And she's going to help with the monitor broadcast and also check the chat room. I'm going to put the chat room on right now. Okay, so give me some comments and say hi and tell me where you're from. What I'm going to do today is I'm going to do a lesson on watercolor techniques. I'm going to focus on using the rigger brush. And but let me show you something here on my main before I move on. Okay, down here below. There's on Facebook, I have a watercolor art group on Facebook, and there's the group right there. And what I'm going to do, you can go onto Facebook, or you can sign into that right there on that link. And then my fun with watercolors, on my website, I'll be putting a copy of today's picture and a copy of my design diagram. And I recommend, if you like, to go ahead and try and paint along with me after today's lesson, and then post it on my Facebook page, and I'll give you a couple of comments about it, so that way we can communicate. So there's also my website up here, and I'll also be rebroadcasting the film on the video on my homepage. Right there. There's the link right there to my live classroom. That's where you'll find the video if you want to look it over again. Okay, let me turn that off. Okay, so today I'm going to take you over to my my main table and my painting table, and let's get started. Hey, turn the overhead light on. That's already on. I'll be darned. Okay. Okay, what you see now in front of us is this was a snapshot. This is my reference for last week. I did a color study using color pencils last week on the lesson I showed there using color pencils, and there was the color pencil I did on the Meadowlands. Okay, so using that reference there, today I'm going to do a close-up. Now this is a reference photo today. Look at the foreground, and I was really interested in the textures and also the different shapes and sizes of the foreground. And you can see here the grasses, the tops of the grasses, and so forth. So when I paint this today, I'm going to do a little special deal here. I'm going to minimize the background and minimize the middle ground and just concentrate, really focus in on the foreground. I'll show you how we do that. I think you'll find that very interesting. And also, while I was on location taking this photograph, I did some close-ups. Now here's a close-up of one of those interesting bushes here that I'm going to have in the painting. So I got a close-up of that photograph of that particular item there. And also, this was a close-up of the tops of those tall grasses. So when you're out on location or you're taking pictures, make sure you take some close-ups so you'll have some detailed information about possible paintings. Now this is the on location sketch that I did while I was taking those photographs. So I did a plein air. I did a plein air color sketch of the foreground there, of the different types of I would call them weeds, but anyway, and also that bush there. I thought that was very interesting. So that's what I did on location to get familiar with the subject matter. Then I've taken the photograph and my references, and I've gone ahead and did a design plan here in my drawing. And you can see here, I'll bring it up closer. This will be on my This will be on my my website, on my Fun with Watercolors page, and that link is what I showed you in the beginning of the program. And it'll be in the description of the video today to go and get a look at this drawing, and also download a copy of the photograph, my reference photograph. And with those two items, that would get you started on doing a painting. You can do a paint along like I'm doing today. Okay, let me go over some of the materials I'm going to be using. On my colors, for the sky, I'm going to use cerulean blue. For the sky and the water, cerulean blue. And for the grass and weeds and so forth, I'm going to use yellow lemon and yellow ochre and burnt sienna. Also, I'm going to be using green number 1, green number 2, and hooker's green. Those 3 greens I'll be using. Also, I have Payne's gray in the palette. That's to dull the color down a little bit, or also to add a shade or add a darker shade to a particular color. And also titanium white if I need to lighten something up or change the value of something. I got titanium white. These are all Holbein artist watercolors I show here, and I'm going to use them Gemini 140-pound watercolor paper for the painting, and I'll be using Holbein brushes, which I'll show you here in a moment. And all these items are available on Everett's Watercolors, www.everettswatercolors.com. And I'll also be using my palette in a bottle, the fine mister. I'll show you how I'll be using that today. So that's the list of items I'll be using today: my paints, my brushes, and paper, and the palette in the bottle, spray bottle. Okay, the 3 brushes I'm going to use today. I'm going to use the Holbein flat 3/4 inch synthetic brush. It's a nice brush. I like this one. I use this one a lot, and it gives me a nice control and so forth. I'll also be using number 8 round for a couple little detail places. But the star today is going to be my number 4 rigger, which is these are all Holbein brushes. These are all synthetics. I'm going to be using the Holbein rigger number 4. This will be the star brush today. You can see it's got a nice long tapered brush area, and do a lot of work with that. I'm going to show you how I use that today in lots of areas. Okay, and here I'm using the palette in the bottle, fine mist, and I'll be using the wet paper and so keep it wet, keep it moist. Okay, all these things are available on everettswatercolors.com. I've got my palette pretty well laid out today, and I'll go through the color mixes as I mix them up. And I've got a special little palette here I'm going to use for the rigger brush. Okay, I've got the drawing here already drawn out here on my. Let's see, make sure you can see everything. Let me move this over just a little bit. Okay. Okay, I've got the drawing here on my 140-pound. I'm using a 1/4 sheet watercolor paper, which is 15 by 11 inches wide, 15 inches wide and 11 inches high watercolor paper, 140-pound cold press. And what I've done in preparation, I put the light outline of the drawing on here, my design, and then I put in some of the primary elements here, which are the tall grass and so forth. And I've gone ahead and masked out some of the areas to protect the paper, protect the white for just a little while. So I did that in advance so that when I paint over it, I can save those areas for other colors on top of that. So I did a little masking here. You can see the masking fluid I've already put on some of the tops and on some of the stems. And that's to save the white paper. Okay. All right. The first thing I'm going to do, let me wet the palette using a dot sprayer. A palette in a bottle, dot sprayer, and I'll be using the palette in a bottle fine mister. And these are sold exclusively at everettswatercolors.com. Okay. The first color I'm going to mix up is for the sky. I'm going to let me mix the colors up. This is cerulean blue up here. And I'm going to put in the sky and the water all at the same time. So I'll mix up that color. Let me wash out the brush. I'm going to change color now. I'm going to go move into Hooker's green. And I'm going to add a little bit of Payne's gray to that. I want a dark mix. So I add the Payne's gray to darken the green down just slightly. Add a little more value, a little darker value to the green. Okay, those are the two colors I need to get started. All right, the cerulean blue and the dark green mix. Okay, the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to wet the sky and the water. So I'm going to use my Hake brushes here. These are the large Hake and a smaller Hake that are also on my website. These are natural hair. These are goat hair and they're very soft, but they're great for doing a big large wash, which the sky and the land's going and the water's going to be. And today I'm using the palette in the bottle with just water in today, but I can always add watercolor paints to that in the in those bottles if I want to use paint. And I have all the paints in my palette. They're in my bottles. And right now I'm soaking down the paper. I'm soaking down the paper here on the sky, right across the middle ground, background, and right across the water. So this first section, this first phase, I'm going to be painting wet and wet. Okay. Okay. Why? The only question I have would be if the paint palette in the bottle is where I can put all the paints in my palette into the bottle. So I just use the paint and I just put it in the bottle and mix it up, and I can use that to add texture, or I can add value to a particular area just by spraying the water and with the paint inside.
We have a question about the tile piece there with your paint.
I'll get to that. I'll get to the tile in a moment. Thank you. That's a good question. Okay. What I'm going to concentrate on now is getting the palette painted here. So I'm going to go right across the sky. This will be a light color. As I come down, it'll be lighter. And I'll add just a little more pigment now as I go into the water and go on down. This is why I cover the some of those weeds and tops of those tall grasses, so I can go ahead and paint right over top with the background. Okay. Okay. Now I've got a nice blue sky there. Let me rinse out the brush. Okay, we're done with the Hake brushes. Okay, now while it's wet and wet, what I'm going to do now is I'm going to paint while it's wet and wet, because what I want to have is a soft edge on those background trees and even the reflection of water. So what I'm going to do is go ahead and put a brush full of this Hooker's green and a little bit of Payne's gray in here. I'm going to go ahead and let's try it up here. Okay. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to put this in. This is wet on wet. And I'm going to get a soft edge, which is what I want. And it's going to dry lighter. I'm going to put it on nice and it looks like it's dark now, but it's going to come down when it dries. Watercolor always dries about 30% or 40% lighter as it dries when the water in the paint mixture dries. So all I'm doing now is just kind of following a general outline up here, and I just want a soft edge. Okay, now the reflection, I'm going to go ahead and put that in also. The reflection of the of those trees into the water. I'm going to go ahead and put that in. Using the same color. Now, the reason I needed the spray bottle was if the water was getting dry on me, I could go in with a spray bottle with a fine mist and re-wet that paper a little bit. So that's what the spray bottle would do with the fine mist, just to put a little moisture down on the paper to keep it moist. So I used the palette in the bottle with the fine mister top on it to give me that fine mist spray. Okay. All right. That's about now. I will use the flat brush a little bit more in the exercise demonstration, but right now I'm basically finished with that. Now I'm going to pick up the number 8 round, and I'm going to use a little bit of, let me move this palette over. We'll get to that in a moment. I'm going to use that in a second. Get a little bit of lemon yellow. I'm going to go across here. This is a reflection, or there was some light grass here in the background. If you recall from my colored pencil work last week, I put in the same background. It was just it was background. It was some yellow grass back there, and also I'm going to put in some burnt sienna. There was some tall grass there in the background also. So these are all dry. These are all dry, much lighter. So, but it's just to put the effect back there. A little bit of burnt sienna in here. There's some tall grass, tall weeds back here in front of these trees. So I'm going the background is going to be light. There's not going to be much detail back there, but that's what I want. I want all the focus to be in the foreground. So I'm making my background secondary. I'm checking the moisture here now, so it's fine. Everything's coming out fine. I want this to be a light mix down here. I don't want too much detail there in the middle ground. Just enough to indicate there's something back there. These are reflections that are in the water. Okay. Now what I'm going to do now is I'm going to dry that because I'm finished with that first part of the painting. Okay, so I'm going to turn the hairdryer on to dry it off. So what I've done is gone wet and wet on the first layer. And the first layer was to get the sky and the water in. And then while the paint was still wet, now what I'm doing now is I'm picking up any excess moisture on the sides because I don't want that to leak into the edges. That would cause blooms or blossoms on the edge of the painting. So what I'm doing is taking a tissue, just taking off the excess moisture off the edge of the paper. Okay, now I'll continue to dry. So you can see here now how effectively putting that light layer in there. You're going. This is the background. You can see it. This is going to be a light value. But by putting it wet on wet, it also gives me a soft edge, because I don't want any detail in this particular kind of painting. I didn't want any detail in the background at all. I wanted it to be soft edge, light value. And here I'm just making sure the paper is nice and dry before I take off that masking fluid and continue on with the painting. So while I was out on site doing this particular drawing, I became fascinated with the foreground. I said, you know, there's a lot of interesting shapes here. So when I went back out there last weekend, I took some pictures and also did a quick color study. I said, well, you know what? I think I'm going to do that as an exercise. So I think you'll find this interesting when I'm finished. And you'll have the photograph and you'll have the drawing, or my design sketch, downloaded from my website. And then you can go ahead and try this little exercise yourself. I think you'll find it interesting. What you want to do is, before you take the masking fluid off, make sure it's perfectly dry. We'll take an extra precaution. I'll check with the back of my hand. Still feels a little bit cool down here. Okay, be right back. Okay, I'll use the back of my hand for checking the dryness of the paper. It should feel warm. If it feels cool, it's still a bit damp. Okay, now I've got the rubber cement pickup to pick up the masking fluid. I used my masking fluid. I used the Incredible White Mask, which comes in a 2-ounce bottle, and I have kits on my website. I have a applicator and also this 2-ounce bottle of Incredible White Mask, and also there's a rubber cement pickup which comes with it, and that's what you use to take off the masking fluid with. That's what I'm going to use right now. So I'm going to rub this off, and it comes off very nice. It comes off very easily. I'll rotate it around. Give him a little bit of exercise today by taking off the masking fluid. Working on my forearms and fingers. So I'm just taking off the mat, and I didn't intentionally want to put that much masking fluid, but I said, well, as long as I'm going ahead and put these stalks in, I said I might as well go ahead and try to save some of the white paper, because they're going to be covered up with paint anyway. But it gives me a better start, and it's a good demonstration of using white masks too, because in some cases you want to use save the white paper, and other times it's not as important. This foreground will be some areas will be darker than the background, so it wouldn't make any difference. But I wanted to take the opportunity. Now I use the fingers and just go across to see if I picked everything up. If they're still there, it'll feel a little bit rough under the touch. A little bit here. Across, okay. Nope, one more here. Okay, all right. Okay, the masking fluid's off, and you can see I got a little bit of white paper there on the left as far as the design is concerned. Now, when I put these areas in, I chose the most prominent ones, and I gave it lots of variety. You can see I made some of them longer and some shorter. Some were leaning one way, some were leaning the other way. There are differences. There's different spacing between the areas, so that's part of the design, is to make it an interesting layout of the colors and so forth, and the shapes. So now this here, I think I showed this in an earlier program, but what it is, it's a piece of tile. It's bathroom tile, which is ceramic. It's a ceramic tile, and what I'm using this is I'm using this as part of my palette. My palette is ceramic palette, and this is also ceramic. So this ceramic tile, I'm going ahead now. What I've done is I put the colors I'm going to use out here, the yellow lemon and the yellow ochre, and it's a lot. I have found just by painting and using this a lot that it's easier for me to show the mixture. Ceramic, porcelain. It's a porcelain palette. This is porcelain. This is porcelain tile, which should be, you can buy this. You can buy these pieces like this in any hardware store. This costs a couple dollars, so it's very economical. But it's a good way. It's a good way to mix your paint and also to prepare your paint. Now I'm going to go ahead and line this up. This part here, you see, this is the rigger. This whole exercise today is really to use the rigger, and it's the best way that can be used. So I can start. I think I'll start here on this one. Doesn't matter. And I'm following more or less the white paper. It's okay. Now load the brush by the side. You lay the brush on the paint on the palette, and you look. You see, it's easier here to show you how to do that. And then I roll the brush, and it's really loaded. So I'm going to pick a little bit of this up. So I'm going to take a tissue, and I'm going to just lay this over top. I'm going to pick a little bit of that paint up. Okay. That way, I took a little bit of the pigment off the paper. So I roll the brush here. I'm mixing yellow ochre and a little bit of lemon yellow. I'll put another one in. Load the brush. Now see, I probably can use this. I probably don't have to roll this all the time. Let me just try it. Load it up, load the brush, roll the brush, make a nice sharp point. Now I'll go ahead and put another one in. And I can hold, it's better to hold the brush at the end. Don't hold it like a pencil like this, okay? Most people would, I've seen a lot of beginners use it just like a pencil. It's better to use it at the end of the brush. You get actually, you believe it or not, you get more control that way, and you can control the pressure. I'm going to do a few more of these. Load my brush. So the rigger entirety, it was designed to draw very fine lines, and a rigger, of course, was in the old days on sailing ships. The artist on the boat would paint the ships, and these were used for the rigging. We're doing very fine lines for sailboats. Of course, they're painted that way today. But that's the whole purpose of them. That's where the name came from, rigger. Making very fine lines. And I'm holding the brush at a very high point, almost at the far end, And you know, these are tall weeds. They don't have to be perfectly straight. You can have a little bit of wiggle to them, which is okay. Now I can come down this way now. Come up here and come down. Go both ways. I'll try to give these I'm trying to give these shapes a little bit of different variety of angles. Some are straight up and down, some are leaning to the side. This one here seems to be also going through. There's one over here. Now see, this one I didn't put a I didn't put the masking fluid on, but I'm going to go ahead and put it in anyway. So the masking fluid just saved some of the white paper. That's all it did. And it may help, or it may not be necessary in some cases, because I'm putting a darker color over top of the background, so it's going to show up anyway. So I'm going both ways. I'm going from top to the top side, and I'm going from the top side and bring it down to the bottom side. Get a couple more over here. Okay, and we're going to fill this in quite thoroughly, so it doesn't really take, just to get started, get the main characters started here. These are the main, what I would call the main characters, and the rest are going to be secondary because we're going to fill in the spaces here rather quickly. Okay, now I'm going to start filling in some of the leaves. Now the tassels, or the tops of those flowers, were just, I'm going to load up the rigger brush again. I use a little bit of this yellow lemon and a little bit of yellow ochre here, just a little mixture. And then I'm going to go in, I'm just going to put in a little color here, just a little color on top. And just be a couple little, I'm using the tip of the brush now. I'm using the tip of the brush just to make I'm making these little marks. They're like little spokes or little spikes that come out of the top of that little, it's not a flower, it's the top of the weed there. You see a lot of this tall grass around the meadows. This is like a meadow grass, tall meadow grass. It grows up very tall, 7 or 8 feet tall. They're very, very, very long. Now here's another one I can bring down. Okay. So I'm just right now. I consider this, putting in the initial layer, just putting down some color, because we can always come back and add more to that. Get initial color mix. Okay. So these little shapes here, they were all, some of them were larger, some were small, some were a little bit long, some were short, but whatever. Okay, now there was one bush here I liked. Was a little bit different, and all the other bushes, it had a little bit of greenery on it. So I'm going to use a little bit of green number 2, and also maybe a little bit of green number 1. And I'll mix a little bit of yellow. Put a little bit of, I'll start with a yellow mix first. I'll put a little bit of yellow lemon in that. And then this, I'm using the tip of the brush. Now these were leaves that were on this on this. It was a small bush. It was a small bush there, but it was interesting shapes. So I thought I would make that more or less a star of the show here, because this is different than the rest of everything else. and it's got a different characteristic to it. So I thought I'd make it a star of the show. So this will be more or less the impact area or the focal point of this painting. We'll have these green leaves on it. There'll be more greens in the other areas, but uh, this was the one that stood out as a much different looking bush or whatever it was. A bush, or I call it a bush, a small bush. Okay, now let's see. Got some more. I got some more little small ones over here. These are little small. I'm gonna call them weeds, or just the meadow grass. This one had a little bit over there. Okay, I can come down with this. So I'm using the edge of the brush or tip of the brush to point, and I'm very far back on the end of the brush, just drawing a line down. Okay. Okay. Now I'm going to mix up some. I've got the green here on my palette, so load the brush with green. Now I'm going to go in here now and put in some green. Put in some green grass. So just by holding the brush at the end and just dragging it up, see how it tapers off to the very end. By pulling the pressure off the paintbrush, it comes to a fine point. And also, well, another stroke I want to demonstrate here is you can use the side of the brush. So I load up the brush with paint. Put a little more water on that. Loosen it up. There we go. Load the brush, and I'll just lay the brush down flat, and I can make leaves that way. So that's a leaf coming off that particular uh, grass. So I'm just laying the brush down on the paper, just laying it down. And I discovered that just by practicing the painting. I just say, well, how can I paint? How can I paint those leaves on these particular stalks of grass? And I said, well, I'll use the brush. And say, how do I use the brush? Well, I just laid it down. So what you have to do with your brushes is when you take them out and paint and get painting, is try different things with your brushes, different angles, different pressures. Up and down, turning the brush sideways, turning in ways, using the edge of the brush, the side of the brush. So there's all kinds of ways to experiment and do things like that. Okay, now I'm going to go back. I'm going back and pick up some more yellow ochre and yellow lemon. And I'm going to put some of those. I'm going to put some of those leaves on these other. I'm going to lay this one down. Just lay the brush down. And this one I'm going to drag. I'll drag this one down a little bit. Lay the brush on the paper. Pull it down. It makes a realistic looking leaf on this particular area. There were some leaves. There were some leaves over here. So these stalks had they had long stalks, but then they had leaves that led up. They were up top of the stalk. Okay. Now there I came from the bucket, and I pulled the brush out of the bucket, and some of the loose water hit on the paper. But pick it up right away with a tissue. Don't let it lay there unless you want that mark on your paper. Okay. All right. What I'm going to do now is go ahead and put in a little bit. I'm going to pick up a little bit of burnt sienna and mix it in with that yellow ochre. Get a little darker mix. Now load the brush up. Now I'm going to go in and do some more. Put in some more weeds, different color. Now go a little bit faster now. Now that you've seen the example of how to do it, now you can speed it up. Now, before I get too far away from this, what I'm going to do is I'm going to take the burnt sienna, mix it in with a little bit of Hooker's green. I'll make a dark value. Hooker's green mixed in with a little bit of burnt sienna. Because burnt sienna's got red in it, red and orange, and red and orange is a complement of green, so it'll make a nice dark color, almost black. Now what I'm going to do now is I'll bring my brush up a little bit tighter because I want to make a real careful. I'm going to put some branches on this bush. Put some branches on this bush. So get them in here. And this, well, I guess I can add a little greenery over there. This branch here, add a little bit of green to it. I'll go back and put some more green on this bush in a minute, but right now, just get it started. Okay. Oh, back to the burnt sienna. Go over here. I'm going to put in some more tall stems. And what I want to do is I'm going to build a pattern across here. And I'm going to leave some openings. You can see the water through part of this grass, but then there was a lot of very thick grass that grew up here. They were all on top of each other. They're very thick. But I'm going to leave some water showing because that's exactly what I saw. I'll pick up more of that yellow ochre now. Adding more yellow ochre and a little bit of lemon yellow. Get a lighter color. So these colors were fairly realistic. They were, brown and green, and so you can pretty well, and yellows and browns and greens. That was kind of the mixtures. So you can kind of make up your own idea of how you want to paint this particular section. But now the grass gets real thick together because they really were tightly located here. I left a little bit of the water showing in between, just to indicate, yeah, you can see some water, but they were a lot of branches here, a lot of grass growing up around this area. Okay, now we get down a little bit further down. I'm going to use more of that green now. Now another way I use another way I use the rigger brush is I load it up. Let's say I'll mix a little bit of green now. I'll put a little yellow ochre in with the green number 1 and green number 2. It's kind of a and I can drag the brush sideways. I go against it, what I call against the grain. I can drag it this way like I had before to make a smooth line, but I can go the other way and make a different kind of mark. So I can make, this is the grass that's on the ground, and I can bring this back and forth and give it a rough edge. So I'm using the rigger brush now as a texture, and I can also drag it up and down like this on the side. Use the side stroke a little bit, and this will give me a nice rough look of grass, which is what I want. Because the grass in front here was just grass, weeds, what do you want to call it. Now I'm going to mix up a little bit more yellow with a little bit of yellow ochre. And I'm going to go in here with mixture. I'll mix this green up a little bit with a little bit of yellow. Yellow and brown. A little bit of burnt sienna now. And put a little brown in the ground. Move the brush back and forth. I'm pushing the brush. I'm pushing the rigger. Give me a rough brush stroke. I don't want it to be smooth. I don't want it to be perfect. I want it to be rough, because this is all grass and part of the ground down here in the foreground. Load up that brush on the side and come in and drag it. So the rigger can give you a nice texture area by dragging the brush different ways. Not just making little small lines, but you can make rough lines, grass, weeds, texture. Right now I'm trying to cover up a little bit of those white areas. I'll leave some white areas showing. They're okay. Gives me a little sparkle in the foreground here. A little variety. Now I'll go in with a bit more of that burnt sienna. Get me some darker strokes in here. Give me some variety. Because I know this color is going to dry lighter when it dries, so I got to put it in a little bit darker than I think I need it. If it looks okay when you put it down, it's wrong, because it's going to lighten up on you. Now I'll take a little bit of this burnt sienna, and I want to put a little bit of character look up here. So I'm going to put some dots and dashes up here on these, on top of these stalks. They reminded me of tassel. It was like a tassel top. So they were like long tassels that were blowing in the breeze. So let's call them tassel tops. That's all I can describe them. These were long long stems with a tassel at the top. So all I'm doing now is just putting a few more marks to give it a little more character. On top of that lighter value, I'm putting in some darker marks to give it a little bit of character to those, a little bit of design. And the only way you get the design when you go is to observe. Look at what's there. Look at somebody else. That's why I did those close-ups. Those close-up pictures have all the characteristics that I'm looking for. The shape of the flowers, the kind of flower, or shape of the subject. Gives me some detail to add to make it look more believable, more realistic. Okay. I got to take a sip of water here. I've been talking too much. Let me take a sip of water. Okay, now one thing also, I can come back in here now and I take the 3/4 inch flat, and I can put. I'm going to put some burnt sienna, a little bit of yellow ochre. Now, not this flat brush now. By loading it up, and it gives me a nice sharp point, a nice sharp edge, just like a razor. And I can take that sharp edge now and go in, and I can make some highlights here on some of these stalks. Load up the brush, get it nice and flat. And I can go in here and I can add in a little bit of detail. Not too much, just a little bit. So the flat brush can come in also along with the rigger and the number 8 round. And that's all you really need to make a basic painting is a nice flat brush, a good quality round brush for a little detail, and then a rigger to give you a little bit of a variety in your brush strokes. So now let me put a few more. I'm just highlighting and putting little darks up here. I could do this with a rigger, but I wanted to have a chance to also use the flat. You play around with your brushes, and I'm just having fun here. I'm just taking putting little highlights on these stalks to show the shadow side, or show the shadow side of it. Now, this one here was light, so I'll make it dark. And I'm making these darker because the middle ground is light, so I'm trying to make these. I'm trying to emphasize that we have a little darker value up here, a little bit in shadow, which would be a darker value. Okay, I think the last thing I can do with the rigger, I'll just do a few more marks down here. I'm going to take some of that green now, put this brush away. I'm going to take some of that light green, which is green number 1 and green number 2. Load the rigger up, and I'm going to go in here now and just rough up this edge. I don't like a straight line. I want to make a little rough edge down here. And I don't want it too green. I want to put a little bit of yellow ochre in that to change that color just a little bit. Maybe a little bit of yellow lemon. So I'm making this edge down here. Make sure it's not straight and even. I'm trying to give it a little variety, a little bit of texture. Change the color a little bit here and there. Okay. Now you could play with this. You could play with this for a long time and just add. Before I leave though, I want to put a little more punch on those. More punch on those what I call the bush leaves. So I'm going to use a little bit of the dark green, which is Hooker's green. And I'm going to go in with my rigger. No, I think I'll hold off. I could do it. I could do it with rigger, but I'm going to take the rigger away. I'm going to use the round. I haven't used the round. I haven't used the round. I haven't used the round brush very much today. So I'll go in there now and put a few more touches here with the round brush. So I'm putting a little more definition here now, a little more detail on these little petals I found on this bush to give a little more emphasis. And I think the detail would be on the edges. The edges have sharp leaves on here, pointed leaves. And leave a little bit of white showing, which is okay. Line, highlights. Okay. The only last thing here in the whole area was there was a little bit of some yellow flowers down here, little light. So I'm gonna put a little just to make the foreground even a little more special. I'm gonna put a little bit of yellow down here. There was a little bit of yellow flowers here on the ground. Oh, in this section over here. So I'm gonna put those in. They were little light bushes, flower bushes, little light stems with little flowers, little bit of yellow on them, and then they had a little bit of they had little stems coming off of them. So I'm going to put just to indicate that it was some low lying flowers with yellow. Just a little detail down there, not too much. Now, the only area I could do is the titanium white. I could do some highlights now with the white, and here I can just there was some I'm going to put in the white paint now right across the area. There were some tall grasses that were leaning over, and they were kind of neat. So I'm going to go ahead and put some of those in there. I'll use this white paint to bring that out. Now this is opaque. I mean, opaque, partially opaque, but it's also got some Chinese white in it, which is transparent. So it's going to dry lighter. And there were a couple short ones down in this area. So okay, so that gives me a little variety, little highlights there of that particular area. Okay. Okay, well, today was to play with the rigger brush to make the long stalks and to add in the stems and so forth. And I showed you that one I like that brush stroke. I just lined the brush down and creating this petal. Just taking that brush and just lay it down on the paper. Load it up with paint and lay it down and make a petal. That'll give some variety. I'll put some down here. So that brush, that's not even a brush stroke. You just load the brush up and you just find a place you want to put something, and then you just let it down, and it'll create a mark. And that mark could be a branch, it could be a leaf, but that's a brush stroke. Just laying the brush down on the paper. Okay. Okay, this is still wet. I'm going to leave it wet. I'm going to put a mat around this so we can take a look at it, and then we'll show this off. Move this over to the side. Bring this up over here so you can see it. Okay, we'll put a mat around it. Okay. Okay, that's a complete painting. And once I leave the tape on for right now, we're taking the tape off, it'd be matted up like that. And you can sign it down here in the corner. And what I did, I'll show you another one I did also. Okay, so that's the give you a nice view of that. You can do a snapshot, do a screenshot. Okay, and let me put that aside. And let's see. Here's one I did. Here's one I did earlier in the week. Did a little more brush stroking here, in the flower area. Okay, you can see that now. Okay, and put a mat around that also, if I can. I like to put mats around my paintings. That way I can take a look at the final product. You can see there, you know, and again, this emphasizes the this emphasizes the foreground. The background is very, very light, light value. Excuse me, I gotta get a drink of water. The background is very light, and I planned that ahead of time. And then with a soft edge, it puts it way in the background. So all you can see here is a foreground. And that makes the foreground really, really pop out. Okay, now what you can do, you can always take a painting like this, and you can take a small mat, and you can take parts of it. That there would be an interesting design there. Or if you like, I like this bush over here, I can make a painting out of this particular area here. So I could take pieces of this and make 2 or 3 different paintings out of it. Okay, that's one idea. Another idea is to take a 5x7 piece of 5x7 card stock or a 5x7 watercolor paper. And I painted part of that scene on here, and then that makes into a nice little painting, 5x7, or it could be turned into a greeting card. This is one of my wife's stamp set. This is the
That's a die cut.
die cut. It's a die cut with a background to it.
Gina K design.
A Gina K design, and you could add something like that to it, being a nice little card. And here's another one very similar to it. And these only took 10 minutes to make, so these are very quick to do. But they make very effective little paintings and very effective little cards. So they're just a couple ideas of how to use your artwork, or some motivation for your artwork, and what can be done, and what you can plan to do with it. So these are just some ideas to play around with. And just using that photograph of the foreground, make a painting out of it, and also make a greeting card out of it. So let me go back to my main camera. Let me move this stuff out of the way. Going back to my main camera. Okay, well, I'll tell you what, that was a good exercise in using the rigger brush. I think a lot of people have rigger brushes and maybe not know how to use them, or they don't use them enough. But you can use the rigger brush to do an awful lot of work for you. It does a nice job to give you a little detailed design in certain areas, but also you can use it to give you a nice texture using the side of the brush and so forth. And by just laying it down on the paper, you can get all kinds of shapes and design, and push that brush forward and backward, upside down, up and down, and so forth. Give you all kinds of marks on your paper for painting. So I really enjoyed doing that. Don't forget to go to my website and download the link that I showed you in the beginning of the video on how how to download the picture and also the drawing, and then send it to me on my Facebook page. I'd like to see what you like, what you do, and I'll be glad to look at it and give you some comments.
The name of the Facebook page is?
And I'll show you my Facebook page again. There's the Facebook page down here at the bottom layer here, Everett's Watercolors Art Group, and that's the Facebook page to put your art, and then the download for the painting sketch and also for the photograph is here, Fun with Watercolors page, and that's on my website, everettswatercolors.com, Fun with Watercolors. But there's the link right there to take you right to it, and then you can see you can look at the video again on live replay. There's the live classroom link to see the live video again. And there's my website page, which will have a list of all my supplies and so forth. They'll be listed in the description of the video today. So appreciate you looking in today, and don't forget to subscribe to my YouTube channel. It helps with my art program. And also sign up to Facebook and give me a like. So we'll see you again next week on Thursday at 2:00 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. So we'll see you next week. Bye for now.